Punk Rock Elite, a podcast about NOFX. Oh no, I can't believe it. We're back from seeing the Constitution burn. The White House has been overturned. We've seen the blue blood bleed red. It's Eddie French and Red Redmond for the Punk Rock Elite podcast.
Hello.
How are you doing, Red?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. I panicked on the intro, could you tell?
No, and I think we can sort it out in the edit.
Yeah, absolutely. By which I mean, leave all this in. How's your week been?
Yeah, mixed week. There's been ups, there's been downs.
Sure.
But let's concentrate on the punk festival, which was last weekend, which was brilliant.
Good. It was, wasn't it? Yes. This is the first record we've done since the Manchester Punk Festival. Big, massive respect and admiration to everyone who organises the Manchester Punk Festival because, I mean, so slick, it probably shouldn't be referred to as punk anymore.
I was talking to the organisers and they were just saying how this year in particular, like they just know what they're doing. Like they've done it for so many years now. You know, they actually felt like it was going well. Normally you meet them early in the festival and they're very panicked, they're very on edge, but they were calm as anything, just enjoying themselves.
Yes, absolutely. I saw Shout Louder podcast record at Sandbar.
Great.
Which was all of the, or not all, I don't know how many organisers there are, but there were definitely 3 of the organisers there. And so the Shout Louder podcast is an occasional podcast, but do listen out for it because there'll be one coming very, very soon, which will be the record. It's Pictionary, in fairness, so I don't know how...
In podcast form?
In podcast form. I mean, they were playing it live for the audience because it is a live medium. But yeah, and so that was quite good. I enjoyed that. Quite good. It was very good. And and spoke to Sarah Williams, who is part of Shout Louder and one of the organisers of the Manchester Punk Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And she seemed, it was Sunday, it was probably about midday before anything was really getting going.
Yeah.
She seemed very optimistic, well rested, and just about managing pretty admirably, really. So I think, yes, that backs up your observations.
Absolutely. Saw some great bands. Would have liked to have seen more.
Yes, me too.
But saw some great acts. I saw Fresh Punks were really, really great. We saw a Japanese punk band whose name I did not catch in Breadshed, who I love very much. And yeah, just
saw a few minutes of not enough of Melon Ball, who I enjoyed a lot. They had some real Bad Religion vibes going, which I enjoyed a lot. That was in Breadshed as well. Because it's just the 5, I say just the 5 venues. I don't think they've expanded it to more venues this time, which I think is very smart.
Yeah, I think they're trying to keep the number of venues down, particularly with one of them being Rebellion, which is so far away from the others. I think now it's sort of like Rebellion, Gorilla, Breadshed, The Union, Sandbar, and then maybe Zombie Shack. But like all within a very walkable distance. You know, it's different to a lot of festivals because it is an urban festival. It is in the centre of Manchester.
Yes.
But it's all very walkable. It's all very friendly. It's got a lovely
You're never far
vibe.
from a Sainsbury's.
Would recommend it if you are into punk music, you're based in the UK, you've got to go to Manchester Punk Festival. It's one of the best weekends of the year.
Because the good thing is you can just get the train into the centre of town.
Yes.
You're not far. Get your Airbnb or your travel lodge or whatever. It's not sort of peak season. It's always around that sort of beginning of April time. So it's not like people are going to Manchester for the climate, the balmy climes of April Manchester. But although actually the weather was pretty nice as I recall, so I'll shut my mouth. But yeah, you can get Airbnb for a few days or, whatever you like. And it's, or if you're random hand, you can just sleep on Sarah's floor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw Robin from Random Hand, a friend of the podcast. They played on the Friday, played a show in Belgium on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday came back to just hang out. So that was good.
Incredible. And I
Yeah.
think we were quite lucky being on the comedy stage as well,
Yeah.
because, at a festival on Saturday and Sunday morning, if you are feeling a little bit like tender and you're not quite ready for bands,
Mm.
the comedy stage ran 3:30 to 6:30, and it was a
Yeah.
good way of, maybe you'd had enough of a double kick drum for the afternoon. Maybe you needed a couple hours off. You could come into Sandbar, sit down, have a drink, have a pizza, watch some comedy, and then get back to it a little bit later.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I I think that it's always good to have a palate cleanser of some kind at a festival.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I
And that is what we were.
we were an amuse-bouche. Um, we were literally amusing mouths. That's our job.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, it was very, very good indeed. And yeah, I very successful all around. It was it was weird. There was it started very full on Sunday. I think that was from the Shout Louder podcast and the poetry that was on afterwards as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then the comedy, and so there were still people in the room for that, and we sort of rode that wave a bit. A little bit of a lull in the middle of it, but then by the time Andrew O'Neill finished, it was pretty much a full room. It was way fuller than I saw it
Yeah,
last year, certainly. So
absolutely.
resounding
Yeah, yeah.
success from that perspective.
Absolutely. And I think we need to get I'd love to get some of the people that performed on that stage onto the podcast for interviews. I think Solly, who emceed the
Yes,
first day, would be a great guest for us to have on the podcast.
absolutely. Well, you know Sally better than I do, although I know Sally fairly well. But yeah, do it, because we've had musicians, we've got music industry people coming
Hmm.
up, people who work rather than playing the music. We've got all sorts of things everywhere. It says we'll be interviewing comedians. We've yet to do one yet, so we'll get at least one. Oh, we've interviewed each other, so yeah, okay, we're fine.
Yeah.
But to allay my own concerns, we'll do some more of those. Shall we do a new section?
A new section.
A new section, yes. I'm going to
Ooh.
pop it up on my phone because we have had messages from listeners.
Oh, lovely.
I didn't even tell you this, did I? We've had a couple. I'll just read a couple. Two people have got in touch specifically to let us know that favouring Eric Melvin
Yeah.
is not a universal constant.
Okay,
It's
sure.
not that he is not the speed of light anymore.
Okay.
It's both of them favour the same alternative member.
Okay.
So someone wants to point out they're not anti-Melvin. Because I think I said something to the effect of if there's any anti-Melvin activists out there, and I was being flippant. I think it would be really weird to go, I really do love NOFX, but that Melvin. Someone else who said that whilst they like Melvin, they favour someone else. Can you guess?
I mean, we haven't had Fat Mike yet, so do they just like Fat Mike?
I mean, they might do, but that's not who they chose. They both chose Smelly. They both chose Eric Sandin.
So, I mean, well, that means that, if anything, that just confirms that, we do have a top two.
At the moment, I mean, this is like Rotten Tomatoes. It's like the critics' choice and the audience review. They don't line up. So, but that's it, I guess. So, if you do have a favourite, if you want to answer any of the questions, do let us know at punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to our website and contact us through there, or send us a message on Insta if you like. If that, I don't know if our messages are open. If they're not, then soz. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Thank you ever so much to let me see, Kira and Stephen. Those two in particular who have got in touch to let us know that. We appreciate it greatly, and it's nice to know that people are listening at all. That's the bit that we find baffling. So thank you.
Now, we've got an album to review today.
Oh, yeah, we do. If you've looked at the title of the podcast, if you're someone who goes into these with gay abandon, utterly blind, then I admire you, but you'll have seen which one we're doing. We are doing them in order as well, so predictability and all that stuff. So we should probably leap onto this music sting and get into the main body of it. The next time you hear us, we'll be talking about S&M Airlines. S&M Airlines.
Lovely. Good little link there.
Yeah. I practiced it. That was the fourth take, if you're listening at home. So, S&M Airlines, Red, you hadn't listened to it before at all, had you?
I hadn't, no. I was familiar with a couple tracks off of it, in
Mm-hmm.
particular the opening track, Day of Day, or Day to Days.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I think this is I mean, now I know this is only the second album we reviewed, but this
Mm-hmm.
is the first album of the ones that we've listened to, which it really does feel like a NoFX album, start to finish. Um,
Mm.
my immediate thoughts are that this is almost like a a mini Punkin Drublick.
Oh,
It's like a taster,
goodness.
you know,
That's
like
something.
an entree to their later greatness.
Okay, right. So, they're really sort of coming together.
Well,
Uh,
you know, the first album, Liberal Animation, uh,
uh-huh.
uh, I found the vocals in particular not completely unrecognizable, but certainly different to later NoFX.
Yeah.
Whereas here in S&M Airlines, I can hear all of what the band will become.
Yes, I think so. This one is much more Rich Kids on LSD
Hmm.
influenced, even though the first one was very much so. I agree. I think there are aspects of it where you go, "Oh, hello." That's a thing that's going to
Yeah,
become more prominent or slightly more sharpened. I think everything's a bit sort of rusty, or not rusty. It can't be rusty because they haven't got there yet. Rusty's when you
sure,
sort of
yeah,
slack off a bit, but it's basically it's dull. They're sharpening up what it is they're becoming, and I think the production is better on this.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
not well, I mean, I think it took longer than 3 days. I don't know, it doesn't tell us much. It just says recorded March 1989 on, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here. Through Epitaph. There was no re-release. It was just, how it was, and oh, no, beg your pardon. The album was recorded and mixed in only 6 days.
Right. Okay, so they gave
So,
themselves twice as long this
twice as
time.
long. I mean, and that's why I think this is the record where they sold out. This is the Punk Rock Elite podcast. We've got to take stands somewhere, and I'm taking one here. 6 days for 14 tracks. Oh, soz bloody Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
And one of them is a Fleetwood Mac track.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that wasn't originally on the vinyl release, and also features a very low in the mix Greg Graffin from Bad Religion.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That
and
makes
it's
sense.
yeah. Graffin was also one of the singers who did the harmonies on like the title track. Brett Gurwitz did it as well. There's actual harmonies on this one. There's more than
Yeah.
one vocal track, and I think that's what they spent the other 3 days on.
I think one of the most important aspects of this album is the
Mm.
emergence of a theme which is obviously like heavily involved in NoFX's later work and particularly in Fat Mike's life, and that is like sexuality, really. Um,
Yes.
I've heard Mike say in an interview once,
Mm.
he was asked by a fan, "What now? You've done so much in your life, you know, music production. You've worked in the music business. What is the one medium that you think most expresses you, or it's your favorite to in terms of like self expression?"
Yeah.
And he said it was his sexuality. So like not an answer that people would necessarily expect people to think like
Oh,
playing
yeah.
on
He said.
stage or whatever.
I think I've seen that interview, or I've certainly seen one where he expresses a similar sentiment, where he said that if he if he could only do one of the things that he has
Yeah.
done, it would be spend the rest of his life getting pegged. I mean, I'm removing all nuance from the answer for comedic effect there. Before anyone gets upset, and it's fine if you want to spend the rest of your life getting pegged, please do. That's absolutely
Get it,
grand.
King.
Absolutely, work it. So have all of that. But yeah, I think he said that his exploring his sexuality and pursue. I think he said pursuing it, which is a great a great way of putting it. But yeah, pursuing his sexuality is that thing. I'm fairly confident that with S&M Airlines, we're jumping forward to that song, but it's the title track, so why not? He sings "I'll never fly S&M Airlines again."
Mm-hmm.
The idea being that he experienced all of this but didn't enjoy it, was a
Yeah.
sort of musical beard. He was like, he sings about all of this stuff and he's like, no, that's not me. He sort of sings about bondage happening to other people, Liza and Louise, and all of those kind of songs, and doesn't sort of identify himself within it
But that's
until a
how
certain
a
point.
lot of kinks start.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that now, but in 1989, I don't know that the world was as fluent in closeted kink terminology. I think the moment Mike stopped hiding his own predilections and taste and sexuality was pretty much when he stopped writing songs about lesbians doing a bondage on each other and just started singing songs about dominatrixes doing a bondage on him.
Sure.
I think that lines up, because before it was like stories of everyday lesdom, and then when he was like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm being honest about it now. Yeah, I'd ideally like to be Liza in that situation, please." I think that could be it. I haven't. That's just a theory, by the way. If if anyone knows to the contrary, then of course I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. Also, just a side note, I've just noticed on my phone that our Insta story has been liked by Brian.acab. And I think we've definitely found our target market.
Thank you, Brian.acab. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Couldn't ask for much more, could you? So there's 14 songs on this. Oh, sorry, no, there aren't. There are 12. 12 songs on this, 11 originals and one Fleetwood Mac cover.
Yeah.
That's half an hour, 33 minutes, nearly 34. Take that away. So that's about 32 minutes of original material. 4 songs are written by Mike and Melvin,
Yeah.
and the rest are all Mike, except for the Fleetwood Mac one. Doesn't have Dave Casillas on guitar. This has got Steve Kidweiler.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we've got
Sure.
a different second guitarist. According to Wikipedia, this is a punk metal album.
I'm pretty sure it also said that of Liberal Animation as well.
Very possibly. I mean, it's a melodic hardcore album. They get more melodic, but it is melodic nonetheless.
Yeah.
Apparently, it sold 3,500 copies upon release.
Okay.
So that's numbers in it. But so this is on this is in 1989. So I think in between Liberal Animation and S&M Airlines, Suffer by Bad Religion was released.
Ah, was it really?
Yes, I think that was 1988. So my theory there is that the sense of melody probably came from what many people argue to be, if not the first, then one of the more important melodic hardcore albums.
One thing that I noticed a difference between this album and the previous album was on Liberal Animation, you would have a lot of songs where they would, change the tempo and drive of a song halfway through constantly. And there was a lot of like chopping and changing of particularly like speed.
Yeah.
Whereas with this album, it seems a little bit much more like later NOFX, which is, songs start and end at roughly the same pace. And I think that's quite a Bad Religion thing to do as well. I mean, like particularly on like something like Suffer. So
yes,
I wonder if that has any element to do with that. I don't know.
Two of the big pillars of NOFX or Fat Mike's influences are Bad Religion and Rich Kids on LSD.
Yeah, absolutely.
And musically, this has got a lot more in the Rich Kids on LSD camp, because it's still sort of riff driven. It's still alternating guitar parts back and forth and all the rest of it. And those big long sort of intros before you get to anything like Mean People Suck. There's virtually no lyrical, as we found out when we did your fun trivia, there's sort of no lyrical substance there particularly. It's very, very sparse on the words, but musically it's builds, it's got all sorts of stuff going on, and that's a very RKL thing. And I think that perhaps it's easier to come up with sort of riffs and stuff like that than it is melody and lyrical ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps some people may find that the opposite way around, but I think that's sort of, the music can come quite quickly, whereas working out what you want to say in a song and the melody to it, that's more difficult. So I think that's possibly where that is. But also, if you're heavily influenced by Bad Religion and you have Brett Gurewitz producing your record for you,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you've got something. Hence why there's big harmonies on this. There's actually more than one vocal track on
Yeah.
this album, in that final chorus of S&M Airlines, and it is slightly jarring having that big stuff in the background. It's sort of
Yeah.
it doesn't quite fit, which I don't mind, but it is slightly like they're trying something, and that's always to be applauded. So
I think it's also like, listening to it now, knowing the band that NoFX become, I feel
yeah,
like it makes loads of sense. I totally understand. Like, if I was listening to this with fresh ears in 1989, I'd completely agree. I'd be like, these vocals seem a bit odd. But because I know the band that NoFX are going to become, it makes so much sense.
it does, and you can't really listen to this in a vacuum.
Mm,
Unfortunately, you can't come to this without some context, because even if you were to give this to someone who'd never heard of NoFX or something like that, they would probably, like, some reaction video type situation. They probably would go, okay, this was released in 1989. And already there you go, oh, okay. That makes it a different album to if it was released yesterday.
yeah, absolutely.
But I mean,
Now,
what's your sort of overall impression? Were you pro, or how do you feel this weighed up as an album?
I'm pro it. That I
Mm,
do think one thing I will say, particularly following Liberal Animation, is a lot of these songs kind of blend together for me. Like with Liberal Animation, I still to this day, like I really can remember the separate tracks, even
mm,
like, album tracks like I Live in a Cake and Beer Bong and stuff like that.
mm.
But with this, I do think a lot of the songs are very similar. Um,
I think, yeah, they're slightly more. Yes, I agree. I think you're right. That I don't know
there's
if
not
that's
much like change in tone. I mean, like, on Liberal Animation, there's a couple tracks that are heavily acoustic. I
yeah.
don't believe we've got any acoustic tracks here.
No, you've got sort of songs like Vanilla Sex and Life of Riley
Yeah.
are quite, because obviously Vanilla Sex has just got that sort of strummed single guitar thing, and it's a
Hmm.
lot slower. It's a lot more. It's a song you could sing on an acoustic guitar
Yeah.
just by yourself. I mean, you wouldn't be invited back to that open mic again, but you could do that. Whereas day to days, no, not really. You can't. So you've got those kind of more strummy singing, like, but basically a melodic song. It does have like sort of heavy guitars and stuff in there, but it doesn't need them for the song to sort of function properly.
Hmm.
And Life of Riley, there's more slow stuff on this one, I think, because Vanilla Sex is a mid tempo song. Life
Yeah.
of Riley, it's got that. It starts with that ska thing, but it also has that da da dum dum. It's got a much sort of slower, more groove based
Yeah.
kind of bit in it. So there are little bits of variation and stuff like that. But overall, yes, I think I see what you mean. I have to say I did enjoy this album. Again, I enjoy it as a sort of historical artifact more
Yeah.
than I enjoy it for itself. S&M Airlines, that's nearly 5 minutes long. That's insane.
It is, yeah, and you can see why they named the album that, because I mean
Hmm.
it's so much longer than any of the other tracks, and I can see why they've really made it like a centerpiece of the album.
Yes, well, they sort of ramp up to it. Oh no, Jaundice
Mm.
Dies quite long as well. That's nearly 4 minutes. Scream for
Yeah,
Change. They start off with with 5 sub 3 minute songs. It's nice to see that they weren't just doing the same thing again in that
yes,
sense.
definitely,
Although
yes,
there
yeah,
are
yeah,
some similarities, I think the production's a little. It's a little less metal. It's
Yep, definitely.
the guitars, there's less gain, there's less distortion on them and stuff. There's still some heavy stuff, but
I wonder if that's due to the change of guitarist, because it did seem like the previous guitarist was a little bit more of a metal fan.
maybe. I think that they've always had kind of metally second guitarists, though.
True. Yeah.
It means there's some cool solos in here and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
let's have a sort of a look through this. There's a couple of that's one thing I noticed on professional crastination,
Yeah.
which starts with that that sort of fairly lazy reggae vibe thing on it.
Hmm.
When it starts off like that, and then it goes into a hardcore bit, and then it drops back down to just that. There's a guitar line in it that clearly they wanted to be a trumpet or a trombone, because they've like the melody sounds like the sort of melody Hefe would play.
Sure.
But I think they've switched to the neck pickup, and they've sort of cleaned up the guitar a little bit, and so it's got this non-guitar feeling guitar line in it.
Hmm.
And I thought that was interesting, because I thought, well, were they going to look for a horn player? But maybe not, just for the studio. And they're like, clearly just, well, we've only got 6 days. We can't go around making friends now. So so that was an interesting one. So I think that were they to, like you was thinking, if they were going to Tay this right up and
Hmm.
re-record it, I imagine that would be a trumpet line rather than the guitar line. I just thought that was an interesting note that I had.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting point as well.
Mm.
Because they are, like these first two albums, and I hadn't really considered it, but they are very hornless.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll be having the same again. It isn't until
Longest
White.
Line, maybe.
I'm not sure. There's Kill All the White Men on the longest line, isn't there?
Mm.
Yes. So that'll be the first appearance of it that I can think of. So, and we're still a couple of years away from that. And also they get better at ska, thankfully, because it's not their strong suit at this point. The hardcore stuff they can actually do really, really well, but the ska stuff is needs work, which is fine. They put the work in.
So, what are your highlights of this album?
This album, I like I like Professional Crastination a lot. I was very familiar with You Drink, You Drive, You Spill and Life of Riley, because
Yeah.
they're on I Heard They Suck Live.
I think Life O'Reilly's made it onto the greatest hits.
Oh, possibly.
Maybe.
It's got a good bass line and stuff like that. And also I think it is kind of interesting because it does have that groove to it. It's not a common thing for them to have that kind of vibe, but yeah, I think that works. Jaundiced Eye is good.
Yes.
I like that one a lot. That might be
Hmm.
my favorite one on this album, but
I think I agree with you. I think
uh,
Jaundiced Eye is the best track on this album.
it's really, really good musically and also lyrically. It's funny about how it's sort of this very anti-racist song with
Yeah.
clarity in the lyrics. There's a maturity in the lyrics, and it's on the same album as "Mean People Suck." It's a nice blend. I'm impressed with it. It's
I have a theory with Mean People Suck.
yes.
Is Mean People Suck Fat Mike's way of making like their own Nazi punks fuck off?
It does sound like a very childish Nazi punks fuck off,
Right?
doesn't it? Um, it's a funny one. I don't know. It's possible. It could be a thing of he's mocking people who go, "Oh, you're being mean. Oh, mean people suck," and then pointing out that people suck in general. You go, "No,
Yeah.
mean people suck. No, people suck." But I mean, I can't believe we're devoting this level of analysis to "Mean People Suck" by NOFX, to be quite honest. But we should be ashamed of ourselves. Um, But yeah, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. It's certainly not as catchy as Nazi Punk's "Fuck Off," and that's
No.
essentially a grindcore song. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, an interesting point. You know how you were very amused on Liberal Animation. The first song
Hmm.
ends with a Black Dog breakdown.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, did you spot the Led Zeppelin song on this album?
I so like now I can't remember exactly, but I remember listening through the album and going, "Is this Led Zeppelin?" I remember having that moment. I don't remember exactly when it happened.
The beginning of Drug Free America,
Yeah,
it's got the Kashmir chords.
of course. Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
sort of like instead of it's like they're like the strings are being plucked all at once by individual fingers, like.
How weird.
So yeah, Drug Free America stuff. I don't know if they did that as purposefully as the actual Black Dog riff.
Well, I wonder if they had to pay some royalties for the Black Dog lick, and that's why this time round they were like, "Oh, let's play it a
We'll
bit different."
disguise it. I
Yeah,
don't know, because this is the sort of every time we do an album review or an album retrospective, we're going to be like, right now, where is the bit of Led Zeppelin? There's a bit where Smelly plays the drums. That
it's
was a
like
Led Zeppelin.
it's like in an episode of Seinfeld with the Superman.
Yeah, yeah, you got to
There's
find
a
that one.
model of Superman in every episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Hello everyone, Eddie here. Red and I hope you're enjoying our show. If you have been and would like to help us make it a little more easily, then you can donate to us at our Ko-fi page, which is ko-fi.com/punkrockelite, or you can look in the show notes for our link tree. If you can't help us financially, we totally understand, but would love it if you spread the word to other people who would like this podcast. We thank you for your continued support. We massively appreciate it. Back to the show. The thing I like with Jaundiced Eye, one of the things I really like is that when it starts off, the drums have got this swing to them that sounds like Kiss.
Okay, yeah,
You know what I mean? It sounds like
yeah,
it's got that. It's got that sort of beat to it that sounds like sort of 70s Kiss, and I think most drummers of most like rock drummers of Smelly's age tend to all have some sort of thing of like, oh well, yeah, I really enjoyed Kiss,
yeah.
because that's just, they were a massive rock band at the time, and you go, well, yeah, I liked rock music, so Kiss are obviously a very divisive band, even before you get to the personalities of the members. I think there's a wider spread of musical influence on display here, even if only subtly, but because NoFX do sort of full on jazz and sort of Tijuana brass style songs and stuff like that in the future, I think it's having little flavors of it here. Like you say, it's that thing where you see what they're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I just hear it more here than I have in, like we're still early on,
We're
aren't we?
only
I
on
mean,
the
this is only the
second full
second
release.
album, but I can really hear the band they're going to become.
Yes, and I think that's and that is an exciting prospect. And I imagine if you'd picked up Liberal Animation back in day, if you were one of the 9 people who bought that, and then you were one of the 3,500 people who bought this, because most people would have had this as the first NoFX album,
Yes, sure.
because as we know, Liberal Animation got re-released in like 2 years after this one.
Right.
So because this was the first one on Epitaph, the other one was essentially a self-release. So if you were one of the
Oh, is
people
this on Epitaph, did you say?
this was on Epitaph. This was
Ah,
the first one to
interesting.
be released on Epitaph. And so that gets released. 3,500 people buy it. Some of those people will have been the however many who bought the original, that sort of black and red
Yeah.
covered Liberal Animation. And it would be interesting to know what that experience would be, to go from what Liberal Animation was to what this is, and go, oh, that's what sort of a leap would that have been? You'd have gone, oh well, there's definitely something. It doesn't sound exactly the same,
No, yeah.
which sometimes punks don't like.
Yeah, do you think were there accusations of them selling out this early on?
Probably. It's punk.
Sure.
I mean, some people sort of go, oh, I can't believe that band have had their first rehearsal. I used to like them as well. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, guys. There is something about, I mean, there are people who talk about people selling out when, they can afford to do it without living in a box.
Yeah.
I've never understood. I mean, my own personal, and this may not go for everybody, my own personal mark of if you've sold out is if you've released an album or done a thing or made a stylistic choice that you wouldn't have done freely if money were no object.
Fair.
You know what I mean? I think it there are when Rancid released Indestructible,
Mm-hmm.
they signed a distribution deal with Warner Brothers. It wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers record. They didn't have
No.
it, but it was just literally to distribute it, to send it to places, to get it out there.
Yeah.
And people were just wrenching their earlobes off out of sheer despair at the great sellout and all this stuff. I'm like, not really.
It's a great album as well.
I enjoy Indestructible. I like it a lot. And I didn't notice it being particularly different to any. I didn't go, this is a radical departure for Rancid. The
No,
the
it's not
band
at all.
the band who put out that in a row they put out Life Won't Wait and Rancid 2000. It's like they don't. That's, one's a sort of a world music, ska, reggae, rockabilly, punk rock blend. The other's
Mm-hmm.
like these tiny little 2-minute hardcore anthems and stuff. It's like that's not weird for them. That's the sort of thing that they do.
Yeah.
And it's whether listeners like that record or not, it doesn't. That's not really the point. It's not like they were putting out stuff. I mean, like these days, have you heard any recent Papa Roach?
I can't. So, like, I have in passing. I couldn't name a track or anything.
No,
I've heard
nor could I.
bits, and it just sounds like more refined Papa Roach.
It is, but there's some stuff that's really, really poppy.
Oh,
like
right,
with,
yeah, sure.
Like with pop production aesthetics and stuff, like aesthetically pop rather than just catchy.
Right.
And it's like, well, do they want to do that? Maybe. I don't care because I don't like Papa Roach. But so it doesn't really. I've got no skin in this game. But it's like, well, if that is literally what they want to do, then great. I like it when people make the thing they want to make, whether I enjoy it or not. I just like that.
Yeah.
Because you can tell when someone is doing something that they don't believe in. You can smell the authenticity.
Yeah,
Usually
absolutely.
to a greater or lesser degree. So, and I think that, again, with these albums, because there's no real risk that, when you're making your first couple of albums and no one knows who you are.
Yeah.
There's the risk that you're taking is not as big as the risk the record label's taking.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just like, well, this is what we do. We're going to record it and put it out. That's exciting and what have you. Whereas when you get, these days, the scrutiny that a band like Metallica must feel they're going to be under. I mean, they're wealthy enough for that not to be a problem. And they've got enough diehards that are going to just buy that record anyway because it's new fucking Metallica, So I don't know what the point I was making. I think this is sort of a risk-free album from their perspective. They can put on it what they want.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really astute. I think a question that I've been wanting to ask all podcast is what are your thoughts on Go Your Own Way, the Fleetwood Mac cover?
As far as punk covers go, we should probably do an episode all about cover versions.
Yeah, good idea.
NOFX and in general. Because the punk cover can be a thing of pure joy and it can be one of the laziest, most boring things a band can do.
Sure.
This one is neither.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It lands between those two poles.
Yes. Yeah.
It is not something I look forward to. It's nice to hear
Yeah.
Greg Graffin and Fat Mike on the same song. That's
Yes.
just a sort of that's just a nice treat. It's like Television by Bad Religion. Tim Armstrong sings verses on that, and it's like, there's Rancid and Bad Religion, it mixed up together in one song. Yeah, great, love that. That's wonderful. But it feels, it wasn't included on the LP. It was only added on the CD and cassette version, and it sounds like it.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like part of the session, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
Like, you wouldn't be surprised if this was something that they did for a comp, that they went, oh, actually, that's better than we thought. Should we stick it on the album? Because it doesn't really do anything with it. It's the same speed as the original. It's got the same solo. It's got the same, everything. It's got some nice harmonies. But yeah, it's not. NOFX have done much better covers, but it isn't like shocking.
Well, I would argue that you yourself have done better covers.
I have, yeah. I did loads of punk covers through lockdown for something to do,
and a lot of them are like genuinely quite impressive little bits of music production.
Oh, well, thank you.
But like,
that was mainly the exercise.
They have. I feel like the covers I've heard of yours,
yes,
have been slightly better arranged than this. But as you said, this sounds like, they just sort of like jammed together and like chucked it together for a. Is it just for the vinyl release? Did you say, or was it?
No. It didn't appear on the vinyl release.
Right.
It appeared on the cassette and CD when those came out. Not forgetting that Mike is a founder member of Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He listened to about 60 songs for the Me First and the Gimme Gimmes Love Their Country, their country music one. He said, I listened to about 60 songs, whittled it down to 20, and from that we chose 12 to record because he's not very into country and stuff like that. I imagine for the musical one they did, the Ara Drag, I imagine that he likes musicals more than he likes country music. So, but he said that sometimes I'll choose a song that I don't like, but it'll be good for the gimmies to do, or it's like the actual, the chord progression or whatever will work for a sort of a straightforward punk band better than others. So I think like I say, it's sort of one that it's not going to make any of my Eddie's Best Punk Covers records, but it's not one where you go, this is super fucking lazy and boring. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you?
It's it's an interesting track. I just think it falls into the same things that, as you said, punk covers are tricky to do. Not everything is in perfect 4/4 like most punk songs.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a couple, timing issues, particularly with like, I think them desperately trying to fit a NoFX drum sound over a Fleetwood Mac song. But I agree with you. I can't say it's a failure. I think it sits firmly in the middle between good and not good. And I think you appreciate the effort.
Yeah. I think
it's also a good choice.
Oh yeah. I mean, as far as catchy songs go, yeah, absolutely. That's grand. I think it's strange because I don't know if, when faced with a clearly much more capable singer at this point in their careers, Mike doesn't try at all, because some of his vocal takes are fucking shocking.
Well, it's almost like it's a novelty song.
It is, yeah.
I think Mike in particular has recorded it as a novelty song.
I suppose those are the two types. The two types. I suppose those are the two genders of punk cover, aren't they? There's the sort of novelty. Look at us, we're doing this song. Isn't that silly?
Yeah,
And the sort of rather earnest cover where they're like,
sure.
this means something, and I'm going to take it seriously. Or going to treat it seriously rather than take it seriously. One of the best punk covers, as a little recommendation for you all, is Wuthering Heights.
Oh,
Kate
wow.
Bush's Wuthering Heights by China Drum, who are a punk band from the northeast of England, sort of Tyneside sort of way. And it was a secret track on their first album, Goose Fair. And it is heavy, it's melodic, it's brilliant. It's really, really good. But it's done so seriously. Like there's no like sort of little wink at the camera. It's like, I'm singing a song by a lass lake. There's none of that kind of, none of this sort of thing. Whereas I think but I suppose if you do a song by a serious artist, air quotes, like Kate Bush has got a lot of humor and a lot of peculiarity in her work, but she takes it very seriously. She doesn't take herself seriously, but she takes the work seriously. One of those kind of artists. I think there's a difference in doing that than, I'm sure there's probably a dozen bands who've done a cover of Barbie Girl or something like that. Something where you're dealing with a disposable type of song and, go your own way. I suppose, Fleetwood Mac are not a punk band or a punk adjacent band, So it could be a song that was done in like a sneery way, or it could be one that's done in a, hey, actually, it's just a really good song, and we're all about songwriting, and I don't know which version they're doing, but yeah, it's fine.
In terms of punk cover recommendations,
oh yeah,
I'd highly recommend Bad Religion have a Christmas album that is delightful.
It's that's top in it. Yeah, I love that one.
It's really well made. Like it's been really well arranged. They've genuinely thought about it. It's an impressive little album.
Yep. Hark the Herald Angels Sing is my favourite one on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And O Come Emmanuel. They're my two highlights from that. We should get into the artwork of S&M Airlines.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's really good. I like it a lot. It is a sort of a red sunsetty skyline with clouds very high up, and there is a massive dominatrix riding an aeroplane. She's got a whip. She's holding that up in the air, about to crack it. She's in a bustier with suspenders, stockings, and high heels. Oh, she doesn't look pleased. And NOFX at the top, S&M Airlines at the bottom. Yeah, it's by a guy called Ed Repka.
Yes, who is very industrious. Has worked with loads of artists.
So much stuff. A lot of thrash. He's done a lot of thrash albums.
Yeah, a lot of metal.
Megadeth. He's done
a lot of Megadeth.
He's done. I'm looking at his Wikipedia right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Megadeth covers.
Wow.
And it's also like, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, No Honest and Nice Guy, Rust in Peace. Like some of the big ones as well for Megadeth. Some of the
he worked on the Hellraiser films as well. He designed some models for the Hellraiser films,
which would have been around the time that he was doing the S&M Airlines cover as well.
Yeah.
So that's cool. He did Circle Jerks a year or two before this. So death metal. He's done a lot. Uncle Slam. That's cool. I just didn't know that. Oh, he's done a Venom cover as well. That's cool. I like Venom. His Wikipedia page points out, Repka admits that despite being known as the king of thrash metal art, he is not a big fan of the genre. He's more into the punk genre, like the Misfits.
Lovely.
Yeah, so there you go. I didn't know Megadeth had a mascot like Eddie from Iron Maiden.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Theirs is called Vic Rattlehead. And that was designed by Ed Repka. So
I didn't know. What?
Vic
Vic
Rattlehead has his own
Looking at photos of
Wikipedia
him.
page. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he looks like Eddie from Iron Maiden.
He looks a lot like him, yeah. Illustrated mascot of the American thrash metal band Megadeth, Vic is a skeletal figure who wears a suit who embodies the phrase "see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil," as well as a symbol of censorship. His eyes are covered by a riveted-on visor, his mouth is clamped shut, and his ears are closed with metal clamps.
But if you could hear what he was thinking, he's thinking, "We can't say anything anymore."
Yeah, well, to be honest, if his eyes, ears, and mouth are clamped shut, then he's the one enjoying himself the most at a Megadeth concert.
Fucking hell.
Well, I just think they're shit, that's all. Nothing actually, no, it might be personal. No, it's not personal. That's a brief history of Vic Rattlehead.
NOFX should have a mascot. What would NOFX's mascot? Well, no, it's Eric Melvin.
I mean, it is Eric Melvin. No. They must. That's a very good question. I don't know. Would it be called Bob after Bob?
Ah, very good. Yeah.
So overall, S&M Airlines, would you recommend?
Yes, absolutely. For NOFX fans, I don't think this is going to turn you onto them if you're not a NOFX fan.
No.
But I do recommend to fans of the band.
Yeah. Again, it's got that historic. I'd recommend this sort of slightly more than Liberal Animation. I think it's not got the historical. It still has the historical curiosity thing, but I think it's much more recognizable as a NoFX album, as you said earlier. We're not at the vintage point yet. We're not the one in the meme, the guy with the girlfriend looking at the other girl while holding hands. We're not at that point yet of heads being turned. So the next one we're going to be doing is Ribbed.
Oh, Ribbed, not Maximum Rock and Roll.
That's a compilation.
Ah, okay,
It's a comp.
And I'm sorry if this makes you hate me, but this will be the Ribbed is the first NoFX album that was recorded within my lifetime.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. All of them were recorded comfortably within my lifetime. I think we probably will do the important EPs when they crop up in the chronology.
Sure.
And we'll go back and do all of the other stuff at some point or other. But, like The Decline needs its own episode.
Yeah, sure.
The Longest Line, because it's the first one with Hefe, it's where the whole current vibe of NoFX starts. But this is close, a little more mature, although it is only 25 minutes long, which is great.
Great, yeah. I've heard a couple tracks off of here as well, and I do think it's got some great stuff on it.
Yes, I think this is the first one where you comfortably will go, oh yeah, no, this is good as a whole, and you might even offer it to people who like underground music. If you've got any questions on or comments or anything like that about S&M Airlines, let us know. punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. But we're just going to take a quick jump over to the outro, and we'll be there in a moment. Outro! So, Red. Good episode today. Good talk. Do it up.
Absolutely. It's a good album. And I think it's just where like so much of later NoFX comes from. It's been lovely to listen to it. And, I know that it feels like a little bit of an obvious progression from their previous album, but in a lot of ways, I feel like this could be a completely new band. Like there's a lot of elements that are taken out and replaced with other things. I see real progression here.
Yes, I think that this is an album that probably has more to offer academically than musically, but that's not to say it doesn't have musical chops. And I think that there are, I think that it's a little less metally. There are times when melody is being attempted more so, and that's a good thing. And again, something like Vanilla Sex, which is a slow song. It's mid-tempo by song standards, but slow by sort of hardcore standards. And like I say, you could strum that on an acoustic guitar, and it would still function the same way as a song. So I think that's, I'd say that was a success in context of what's come before.
Absolutely.
We want to be grassier and rootsier. So if you are a grassroots venue from anywhere, if you are a grassroots act, if you're a grassroots promoter, if you do something punk rock, be it musically or sort of punk rock culturally, let us know. We'll let people know about you. We want to tell people about cool grassroots stuff. If you're in a band and you honestly think that NOFX fans would be interested, honestly, then let us know. We can put all your details in the thing. We'll get the word out as best we can.
Yeah, lovely.
I think that's we've got the tiniest of platforms. We hope that platform will increase, which you can help with by letting people know about this, letting them know what we do. And you can show them the first one and go, oh, yeah, you can really see what they were going for. And then the second one, you go, oh, yeah, there's progression. I liked it when Red got rid of Eddie and got a new one. And then eventually Red will find their Hefe and this will be a much better podcast. But anyway,
they've actually gotten worse on podcasts.
Yes, well, there's always room for that. And
the they there is actually quite accurate, really. They've got worse life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you don't know whether it's both of us or just one of us. It's a very polite way of doing it. It's like, no, we're saying both of them, but we know which one is worse. If you are less than 100% comfortable with the Melvin praise vibe of the podcast so far, let us know. If you push against that, there's no wrong answer as to who your favorite member of NOFX is, unless it's like Ben Weasel or something. That's the wrong answer. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time. You got anything coming up you'd like to plug?
Oh, do I? Oh, I don't know.
We've been slightly preoccupied with the Manchester Punk Festival, and now that's over. We've got this void in our lives.
I had Manchester Punk Festival. I did a wedding yesterday. So nice.
Were you the officiant?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, that's a shame.
They had an Elvis.
Oh, right.
They had an Elvis that did an Irish accent for some reason, and I was sat there thinking, I don't know. I have Irish family. Should I be offended? I don't know if. Am I offended? I don't know.
Thank you very much.
It was a bit much. It was quite a lot.
That's wild.
Dearly beloved, we are here today. I'm like, I don't know.
Was the Irish impersonator from Ireland?
No.
Right, okay.
Very British.
It wasn't just they had some bloke from Cork who had the wig.
Yeah, but, I watched The Wind That Shakes the Barley last weekend. I don't know, it makes me feel a bit weird.
Yeah, I watched Banshees of Inisherin not only a few days ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I enjoyed it a lot, but I like films. I like films where nothing happens. But
I'll end this podcast on a hot take. Okay,
sure.
So there are some films that are universally liked that I don't understand.
Okay,
and there's been 2 in recent years.
Right.
The Lighthouse was very boring. And Banshees of Inisherin was worse.
Worse?
And I'm the only person that thinks this. I'm comfortable in that knowledge.
I know you're not.
I hope you all have a lovely time.
But I really liked Banshees of Inisherin, but I am an insufferable film cunt when it comes to this kind of thing because if something just presents me with a mood and asks nothing more of me, I'm actually quite happy with that.
Fair.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. But that is the sort of film that I do enjoy. I like all sorts of things, but
I watched the remake of Evil Dead the other night, and that was much more my tone.
Fine. I've not seen the remake of the Evil Dead.
It's good.
Unless you count Evil Dead 2.
Fair. Good. I like
yes, actually. That's what a 2-2 in media studies of a degree will get you. That's
how bands sometimes have secret tracks at the end of their albums.
Certainly.
We've got a secret film podcast at the end of this NOFX podcast.
Oh, as if we couldn't be worse twats. Hey there, it's the White Film Review. Well, I actually
Finally!
thought good. I don't know how I hadn't seen it, because it's precisely the kind of film I'd want to watch. But my girlfriend and I watched The Shape of Water, which she had seen, and I
now
hadn't
that is
yet.
good.
Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely.
Guillermo
wonderful.
del Toro is amazing. Have you seen Nightmare Alley yet? Because I think that's his best.
I've not seen Nightmare Alley yet. No.
Oh, so good.
Saw his Pinocchio. That was good. And then and his Cabinet of Curiosities, or whatever it was called, the anthology series. I think it was on Netflix. I really enjoyed that. But they were both very green films, so I don't know if I was just in a green mood, because everything in Shape of Water is this beautiful different shades of green, and Banshees of Inisherin is obviously the Irish countryside. So there's just something fundamentally green about those two films. So I don't know if I've been primed by, I'm not going to watch House of Flying Daggers next or something, but it's like I've been primed by Shape of Water to really be receptive to overly green films. Maybe that's why. But I did enjoy. I don't know why. There was something about it. I think it was. I think there's been so much sort of wham bam special effects shit of late that anything that is a palate cleanser to that, I get very very pleased about. So but it doesn't matter. I enjoyed it, and for whatever reason that's fine by me. I can totally see why some people wouldn't, because the amount of times I talk about films I like and people go, absolutely not. That's all right, isn't it?
It just feels like a first draft to me. I'm like, come on, Martin, what are you trying to say? Anyway, this isn't what people listen to for.
I don't know. We could we'll have to set up another Instagram. I don't know. I just feel sometimes. In fact, this does relate back to NOFX, because Mike has said that he really likes writing songs that are about personal things that happen to him that people can't work out from hearing the lyrics unless you already know the story. And I feel that Banshees of Inisherin feels like that to me.
Yeah. I will say I completely agree with you on the point of, like, it is refreshing where a movie is, it's a straightforward drama. It's not about special effects. Yeah. It does feel like it is unique when compared to other movies that are coming out right now.
It's an atypical film, and that is a nice thing to see every so often. And but equally, I really enjoyed the Dungeons and Dragons movie, so I'm not acting like I'm too good for everything.
I've heard a lot of people say that, though. A lot of people saying that.
I thought it was I thought it to do something with an IP as massive as Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the same as the amount of output that there is for, like, the Marvel and DC films. The amount of stuff is just huge. And to sort of go, right, how do we do this without just listing off a load of names of places? So people go, oh, they said Neverwinter. Oh, they said that. Oh, they said Baldur's Gate. How do you do that naturally? And I mean, naturally, insofar as there's like centaurs and shit walking around, but naturally in general, really, really good fun. I didn't like how woke it was.
With it woke, were there women that were not in distress?
Do you know what? They were a woman, right? And she did more than bloody men. I thought I didn't come watch this.
Was there a black man what was good at thinking?
Do you know what? He spoke dead nice, and I was like, well, I don't mind that bit. But then he helped out loads, and I was like, well, that just won't happen.
No.
Work.
Work.
Work. It will work. It will work. It will work. I'm not having it. It will work. Good.
Lovely.
Yes. Well, we'll see you next time on... it's going to be a really short outro. We'll see you next time on Punk Rock Elite. Thanks a lot, Red.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to Punk Rock Elite. It was a Pick Scraped and Fruitcake co-production by Eddie French and Red Redmond. If you're not following us on Instagram or subscribe to the podcast, please do. The main theme and production was done by Eddie French. Please contact us at punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.